All right, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating theological puzzle that comes from a classical Islamic text. It all kicks off with what seems like a simple list of good deeds in the Qur'an, but one word in particular, patience, sets off this deep forensic investigation into a kind of hierarchy of human actions and ultimately divine rewards. So, let's dig in.
Now, just so we're all on the same page, everything we're about to unpack today comes directly and exclusively from this one source, Session 46 of a commentary or tafsir on the Qur'anic chapter known as Ar-Ra'd. Our job here is to follow its trail of logic, step by painstaking step, and see exactly what conclusions it arrives at.
So here's our roadmap for this analysis. We're going to start with the core verse that gets the whole ball rolling. Then we'll zero in on the concept of patience and its different levels. From there, we'll look at the broader question of what makes a deed the best, before unpacking the idea of divine accounting. Then we'll touch on God's provision, and finally, we'll tie it all together to see the hierarchy of action and reward that the text builds.
Okay, so where does this entire really intricate argument even begin? Well, it all springs from just one single powerful verse in the Qur'an. And this verse, as we'll see, becomes the bedrock for everything that follows.
Here it is, verse 22. It describes believers as those who are patient, seeking the countenance of their Lord, and establish prayer, and spend from what we have provided for them, secretly and publicly, and prevent evil with good, for those there is the ultimate abode. Now, the key observation the text makes, the real kicker, is that out of all these amazing deeds, the list begins with patience, or sabr. That specific first-place position is the launchpad for this entire analysis.
And this is the fundamental question that really drives the whole discussion. You see the verse listing multiple fantastic deeds, but it naturally makes you wonder, is there one that's actually the best of them all? The author of our source text notes that while the verse doesn't explicitly rank them, this exact question is explored deeply in other narrations, which the text then meticulously examines to try and find an answer.
So let's start right where the verse starts, with patience. The text immediately zooms in on this concept, and it doesn't just treat sabr as one big monolithic idea. Instead, it breaks it down into different categories and begins to establish a clear hierarchy. It's got layers, it's got nuance.
And this is the very specific question that the source text tries to answer right away. If there are different kinds of patience, which one is considered higher? Is it the patience it takes to perform a good action, or is it the patience it takes to resist doing a bad one?
The text lays out these two main categories for us. On one side, you have patience and obedience. Think of this as enduring the difficulty that comes with doing something good, like the effort of fasting all day, or the struggle to get up for morning prayers when you're tired. On the other side, you have patience against sin. This is totally different. This is about actively resisting the pull of something you're not supposed to do. It's a preventative struggle, a battle against temptation. One is about enduring an action, the other is about enduring inaction.
And the text doesn't leave us hanging. It brings forward a definitive answer by citing a narration from Imam Ali. He establishes a clear hierarchy here. Patience against sin is the one that carries the greater reward. And the reasoning given is actually quite straightforward. It's because it is a more difficult struggle.
This really gets to the why behind that hierarchy. The source explains that while patience and obedience might involve an external hardship like physical discomfort, patience against sin is a direct, internal confrontation with your own self, your nafs. It demands that you suppress your own desires, which is framed as a fundamentally deeper and more profound internal battle. So, the key takeaway is that the inward struggle is considered greater than the outward one.
Okay, so from that very specific analysis of patience, the text now zooms out. It broadens its investigation to that bigger question we started with. What is the best of deeds, or afdal al-amal? And it tackles this by exploring a whole range of traditions, each of which seems to nominate a different candidate for this title.
And the text presents this fascinating list of contenders for the title of Best Deed. I mean, look at this. You've got everything from ritual acts like praying on time, to social duties like honoring your parents, and even these really deep internal states like awaiting relief. But the analysis gives special, focused attention to two concepts in particular: marifat, which is gnosis or deep knowledge, and ikhlas, which is sincerity. Now, the source is really specific about what it means by marifat. This isn't just about intellectual knowledge, like knowing facts about God from a book. It's defined as a deep, personal, experiential knowing of God. And the text argues that this internal state of being is so valuable that it actually outweighs the collective worship of every being in existence. It's an internal awareness that changes the value of everything else.
And right alongside that is ikhlas. You can think of this as the absolute purity of your intention. It's the state where you do something only for God with zero other motives, not for praise, not for personal gain, absolutely nothing else. According to the source, sincerity isn't just another good deed on the list. It's the critical ingredient that gives value to every other deed. Without it, even the most massive-looking actions can be completely empty.
And to really hammer this point home, the text uses a powerful classic example. The single strike delivered by Imam Ali at the Battle of the Trench is famously said to be better than the worship of the two worlds. That's all of humanity and the jinn combined. So why? What made it so valuable? The source explicitly states it wasn't the physical act itself, but the perfect, untainted sincerity, the absolute ikhlas that was behind it. This focus on the internal quality of a deed, on its hidden value, leads us directly into the next major theme in the text, a really detailed examination of divine accounting, or hisab. The source analyzes the different ways that divine judgment can happen, pulling from various verses and narrations to build its case. And this is no quick overview. The author is really getting into the weeds here, dissecting the very mechanics of divine accounting, quoting scripture and traditions to build this multi-layered picture of how our actions are ultimately weighed and measured. The text lays out three distinct possibilities for how this accounting can go down. There can be an easy accounting, there can be a difficult or evil accounting, and then, remarkably, there's a third option, a judgment that involves no accounting whatsoever. And each one of these is tied directly to a person's character and actions in this life. So what gets you an easy accounting? Well, the text explains it through a narration that's all about reciprocity. The principle is simple. God deals with you in the way that you dealt with other people. If you are lenient, if you are forgiving, if you are easygoing in your dealings with others, then God will be lenient and easygoing in your accounting. And this brings us right back to our central theme of patience. The text highlights this powerful advice from Imam Ali to his son: be patient upon the truth, even if it is bitter. The implication here is that enduring the difficulty, the social cost, the personal hardship of standing for truth and justice is a key ingredient in securing that favorable, easy final judgment.
On the flip side, you can probably guess where this is going. The source explains what leads to a difficult accounting, and it's that same principle of reciprocity. A person who was harsh, unforgiving, and held people to an impossibly high standard will themselves face an equally meticulous and unforgiving divine audit, where every minor detail is put under a microscope with no mercy.
But then, the text introduces this third, absolutely extraordinary category. It quotes this verse which says that a certain group of people will enter paradise and be given provision without account. This raises a massive question. Who are these people who get to completely bypass the entire process of judgment?
And this is where the text makes its most crucial connection. It links that first verse about a reward without account to this other verse which explicitly says, indeed the patient will be given their reward without account. The conclusion is inescapable. The text is arguing that supreme patience is the one quality that can elevate a person to such a high station that their reward is literally immeasurable, given without even needing to go through judgment.
That idea of being given provision without an account leads us right into the final major theme of the text, the broader concept of divine provision, or risk. And specifically, it looks at the relationship between God's absolute role as the provider and our own human responsibility to make an effort.
The central argument here is all about balance. The text strongly affirms that God is Ar-Razik, the one, the sole, the ultimate provider of everything. But, and this is a huge but, that theological reality is not a permission slip for being passive. The necessity for human action and striving remains completely intact. To prove this point, the text uses some powerful Qur'anic evidence. This verse here, which commands the prophet David to meticulously craft armor, to actually calculate precisely in the links, is used to show that even prophets were commanded to work, to apply skill, and to engage with the material world to secure their livelihood. Effort is part of the divine system.
But then, to maintain that crucial balance, the text immediately presents the other side of the coin. It quotes this famous verse, which promises that for a person who has piety and consciousness of God, God will create a way out of their difficulties and provide for them from completely unexpected sources. So you see the balance? Effort is required, but piety and trust in God can open doors to provision that our own plans and calculations could never have accounted for.
So after that deep and winding analysis, let's pull all of these threads together. The text has meticulously woven together these complex ideas about patience, about deeds, about intention, and about divine judgment. And from all that, we can now clearly see the full hierarchy of action and reward that it is constructed.
So here's the final hierarchy as built from all the text's arguments. First, at the foundation, all good deeds have value. That's the baseline. Second, these internal states of sincerity, or ikhlas, and gnosis, or marifat, act like powerful multipliers, dramatically increasing the value of any deed. Third, within the virtue of patience, the internal struggle against sin is superior to the struggle of enduring hardship in obedience. And fourth, at the absolute pinnacle, is the ultimate reward for the supremely patient, a reward so immense, so great, that it completely transcends the entire system of accounting. And this leaves us with a final, really provocative question that comes directly from the text's own findings. If the ultimate reward is without measure, if it's given without account, that suggests something far beyond a simple transactional relationship of, I do this, I get that. So how does this concept of an immeasurable, grace-filled reward for an internal state like patience completely reshape our understanding of the relationship between our actions and God's grace? It's a profound thought to sit with.